Parliament has just debated 2 petitions on indefinite leave to remain. Should immigrants be able to settle after 5 years, or should the government double the pathway to 10 years? The arguments were fiery, emotional, and so revealing. Many assumed they knew how the MPs would line up on this debate. But if you listen closely, the direction this conversation took might actually surprise you. I watched the entire thing for 3 straight hours just to make sure I don't miss anything. So today, we'll be breaking down what the MPs actually said, what this means for anyone already on the 5-year pathway to settlement, and where things might go next. Many people may be asking, why is this debate happening in the first place? This debate was actually triggered after thousands and thousands of immigrants or people signed 2 petitions on the ILR qualifying period. If you want to know a little bit about the background to these petitions, watch this video here and you will know exactly where we're coming from. I don't want to go back to what I've already said 1 month ago. The first petition asked the government to retain the 5-year settlement route for those that are already skilled worker visa holders. The second petition called on the UK to protect the promises made to the Hong Kong British nationals, overseas nationals, who were given a 5-year settlement route when they fled repression. I'm not going to go into the details of the history of this whole British nationals thing. One word kept popping throughout the debate, and that is fairness. People have planned their lives around the 5-year pathway, mortgages, kids in schools, job decisions. A lot have been planned having 5 years in mind. And if the UK government suddenly changed this halfway through, it's not just unfair, it's like, according to them, it's like moving the goalposts in the middle of a game. That is how they put it. MPs also warned that it could be legally challenged. They said that retrospective legislation is bad legislation, and retrospective legislation should only be practiced where there is a national emergency. And this clearly does not fall into that category. So what we are talking about now are their arguments for their specific stance. Of course, there were counter arguments which we will get to hear further on. Besides the retrospective law, there is the aspect of credibility. They said that if Britain goes back on its word now, especially with regards to the overseas nationals, the Hong Kong British overseas nationals, it damages trust, not just internally here, but internationally as well. Another big theme that they argued was a contribution. Remember, the white paper suggested, or the white paper proposed, that the 5-way pathway to settlement may be less for those that have contributed enough to the economy. So contribution was another huge aspect of this debate. MPs argued that migrants already pay huge amounts in rent, council taxes, income taxes, visa fees, immigration health surcharge. One of the MPs actually went all the way to break this down, like the cost for each of these items that I've just mentioned, and calculated that some families actually spend over £60,000 per person just to stay in the UK legally. I'm sure it's actually more, but that was what she calculated. And that is for a 5-year period, what you will spend for a 5-year period. But that was not all. Another MP said that immigrants contribute around £84,000 per person per year to the UK economy. And on top of that, many of them are business owners. They boost their local communities and even create jobs in their various communities. Some other immigrants, they argue that some are volunteers, some serve as councillors in their towns. So immigrants are not just working, they're also part of civic life. Another argument came towards the health sector, of which they argued that 1 of every 5 NHS staff is an immigrant. And in London, this is close to half of that number. One MP reminded the House that during COVID, these workers kept the hospitals running even while enduring racial abuse. But the argument was simple. These are the very people that Britain can't afford to lose. Now, besides all these numbers and all these scenarios, this debate was also about real people. Some immigrants took their time to write to their various MPs, and some of them actually shared this story and these letters during this discussion or during this debate. One MP read a letter from a skilled worker in his constituent that said, and I quote, "If implemented, this proposed change will create unnecessary instability for thousands of families, including mine. It will prolong uncertainty, increase financial and emotional strain, and discourage people who are already working hard, paying taxes, and contributing positively to the UK. Migrants are not just statistics. We are carers, professionals, volunteers, and parents raising children who already call this country home. We want to belong, to integrate fully, and to continue giving our best to the UK. This proposal will make that harder, not easier." This letter was actually shared during this debate. That was not all. Another MP talked about another skilled worker in his constituent who came on skilled worker visa with her son and her husband. The MP mentioned that this worker has joined the local church and they're contributing as much as they can to their community. But now they fear that the rug is being pulled from under their feet. And in the far north in Scotland, another MP said that care packages have fallen through because of shortage of workers, and elderly people have had to be readmitted to hospitals because of this, and he called it shameful. And then there are the Hong Kong families, children that are settled in schools, parents that are starting businesses. They came here because Britain promised a sanctuary. So the MP said breaking this promise would not only devastate them, but it will be handing propaganda victories to Beijing, who already told Hong Kong not to trust Britain. Another heavy point, as discussed, was exploitation. The MP said that care workers are especially vulnerable because their visas are tied to one employer. And that means if the job goes bad, they can't switch employers, they risk deportation. They noted that some of these care workers were forced into unfair contracts, some packed into overcrowded housing, and some were told, if you complain, you'll be sent home. And here is the kicker. The MP that brought up this point said that if the government extends ILR to 10 years, it just means that people will be trapped in this system for much longer. So that was his argument for the government to not extend ILR for skilled workers to 10 years. So they called for sector-wide visa scheme, which allows workers to move between employers, challenge abuse, and still keep their status. Now you might be thinking everybody was in support of the government not extending the ILR pathway to 10 years. You are wrong if you thought that. There was a counter argument, and one MP argued that migrants cost more in services than they contribute in taxes over their lifetime. I'm thinking where I've heard this before. I think I've made a video on somebody that actually said this exact line. So that was her argument. And she called the recent surge in migration a catastrophic mistake that has cost the country billions of pounds. And fairness, from her perspective, should be fairness to the British taxpayer. And a 5-year visa is not a guaranteed right to settlement. She even argued that the rules should apply retrospectively because, as she puts it, our duty is first to the British people. It was one of the sharpest clashes in this debate. On one side, MPs are demanding fairness to immigrants that are already here, and on the other side, MPs are saying that fairness belongs to only British taxpayers. So, in all of this, you'll be asking, what is the government's response? The minister praised immigrants' contribution, especially the Hong Kongers, who he said have integrated really well, and he promised that that route will remain open. But he also repeated the government's line: settlement is not a right, it is a privilege. The white paper sets the baseline at 10 years, but, and this is important, but there could be fast track options for those that are making meaningful contributions. But who are these people that are making meaningful contributions? He did not say. And crucially, he did not confirm whether these rules will be applied retrospectively. Instead, he promised a consultation later this year. So for now, people are still in limbo. It's like it's just going round and round and round and round. You think that something is coming up and it bounces back to uncertainty again. After all this wait and the rest of the things, everyone is still in limbo. But don't go away yet, because we have key takeaways and a little bit of analysis from this conversation that happened yesterday, the 8th of September 2025. Number one is that the MPs, majority of them, pushed very hard for the government not to move the goalpost for people that are already in the country. Number two is that the Hong Kong British nationals, the overseas nationals, had a very, very, very strong backing. There was real pressure for Britain to keep its promise, like very strong backing. At some point, I was almost wondering if the petition was more about the BNOs, but I thank God that there were still people that spoke on behalf of other immigrants as well. Number three, the issue of exploitation in care work is firmly on the record. And number four, employers are warning that longer settlement options will make the UK less attractive to skilled talent. But like I said, the government's baseline is still 10 years, and the details, all the little tiny details, are being moved to a consultation. We don't know when the consultation will happen, who the consultation will happen with. There is no idea, there is no information, there is nothing that will give us an idea what is going to come up, when and how. But here is something that is important to notice. You will be surprised that this debate in itself has been watched by over 148,000 persons as at the time I'm making this video. And this is less than 24 hours. This tells you how deeply this issue matters to immigrants, families, and communities across the UK. But watching the MPs talk is one thing, and understanding what he said is another thing. What stood out, first of all, was the tone in the room. On one side, the MPs were emotional, sharing all these immigrant stories of NHS staff, care workers, the Hong Kong British nationals, overseas nationals, and people who have built their lives here. And on the other side of the room, it's just a smaller group of them were a bit colder and focused on numbers, the cost, and cutting immigration at all costs. And that is telling, but at least we know that majority of the MPs are on the side of the 5-year pathway to settlement. And then there's what is not said. Remember, silence is golden. Silence carries a lot of information. The question to will these rules apply retrospectively was never answered. And that silence speaks in volume, because, like I said, it still leaves everyone in limbo. And don't forget the bigger picture. This debate didn't happen in isolation. It's all part of the government's plan to reduce net migration. And while the focus of this debate was on the ILR, everything is connected to one huge plan of reducing net migration. So yes, while over 100,000 people have watched this in less than 24 hours, while all of this are happening, for immigrants, it's not about the views, it's not about the speeches, it's not about all the discussions, it's about the uncertainty that it still carries. The families, mortgages, plans for the future, that you're living every day. You don't know if by tomorrow they will ask you that we've just moved the goalpost, so you have to try again to score in another post, midway. And it costs a lot of money. I am saying a lot of money. I cannot do the analysis in this video, but it costs thousands and thousands of pounds for a single person to either renew their visa or even pay for this indefinite leave to remain. This is the most expensive one. I'm not even talking about the becoming a citizen. That one is on a whole new level. But this indefinite leave to remain is very expensive. For immigrants that are legally in the UK, it costs thousands and thousands of pounds to stay here. So here's the bottom line. Nothing changed in law on September the 8th. Petition debates don't usually end in votes, but these debates do matter because it forces the government to give a response and shows where the MPs have drawn a line. So if you're on the five-way route to settlement, one thing you should also take from this is that many MPs are fighting to protect your part. The government is still undecided, and consultation is where the battle moves next. So you see why sharing your stories matters, like real stories like the ones I have mentioned that were discussed and during the debate, and that I have also mentioned in this video. Sometimes it's good to speak up, and these real life examples actually add more weight to this debate. And I'll try my best to be following this discussion every step of the way. As much information as I'll gather, I'll share it on this channel. So if you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? That's the only way you can support this channel. So hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, give this video a like, share it with other people that will need this information as well, and share your thoughts in the comment section. Also, say if you watched the debate yesterday on the 8th, say it there, and tell us also what you picked out, because I did not, it was 3 hours. These are just the highlights that stood out for me. So if there was anything else that you heard that I didn't cover here, kindly share with us in the comment section. I'll be reading, I'll be waiting to hear your perspective, and every other person will also be learning from you as well. And till I see you in my next video, bye for now.